Hello, and welcome to All Systems Nominal Huffman Dusk, part of GauntletCon 2018. So I have a group of pilots here with me to enjoy some awesome mecha action. Uh, so I'll start out with Christopher. Do you mind introducing your character and the Vonzer that you will be piloting?
Sure thing. So my character's name is Hagen Valdez. I am a pilot from Mexico in the UNS, or USN, I'm sorry. I'm going to be piloting the Cheyenne. It's a Freeman model or Freeman. I am a long range specialist, so I'm going to be outfitted with a missile launcher and a grenade rifle in case I need that. Specializations for my pilot are artillery and terrain.
And you have your background is martial, yes. So
That's correct.
maybe a little bit new to the military, but hey, you're in the special forces, so you're definitely a badass of some kind. All right. Next up, we have Joshua. Can you tell us about Chaya?
Chaya has a criminal background and had a rough youth childhood. I'm assuming, if it makes sense for the story, that she was given some kind of deal to join the military, and we had talked a little bit about maybe being in prison with Sasha's character as well, but we'll get to that if it comes up. And she is piloting the Frost, which is a kind of short range. She's got a shotgun and also a melee weapon, just this giant bashing rod thing. Sounds pretty sweet.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the Frost is kind of like the iconic USN Vonzer, so you're going to be our mascot here.
That's good.
All right. Oh, sorry about that. Okay, I think the ambulance has passed, mostly. So next up, we have Michael. Can you tell us about Mary Lou, our captain?
Yes. I am playing Captain Mary Lou Cartier, and she is also a special forces background individual. She has some experience in dropping kind of like behind enemy lines and doing some dangerous missions in that area, which I think is where she kind of earned her experience and promotion as a captain. And she will be piloting the Blazaya, which is a sister model, it appears, to the Frost from the same maker. And it seems to be more geared towards skirmishing, so maybe moving in and out of different ranges of combat and trying to fill in gaps. Does that sound about right?
That's exactly right. Yeah, it's the lighter version of the Frost. Yeah.
Yep, that's me.
Okay. Yeah, cool. You also have a bit of a background in military psych. So that could be quite interesting when the chips are down. Maybe it'll come to your advantage, especially when you're a leader, right? You're our commanding officer, so yeah.
One can only hope.
Yeah. All right. Okay, and then finally we have Sasha. Can you tell us about Venice?
Yeah. So Venice Pilsner has a criminal background along with Chaya. We were met in prison, became friends, went into the army. It's a classic BFF story. I'm piloting the Rexon, which is mostly all about having this big old gun, this big whiny rifle, which is just a real big gun. And I'm excited to use it. My specializations are sleight of hand and improv weapons. We'll see how well they serve me.
Yeah. I wonder if you're gonna like drop a boulder on somebody or something like that.
I can only hope.
Yeah, so it is, of course, not at all uncommon for criminal types to end up in the special forces. So I think we're pretty much on brand here. um, yeah. All right. Cool. So I will just for the benefit of our viewers, read out the situation again, and then we'll maybe get into a little bit of free play to get things kicked off. So the scenario is that it is August 9th, 2091, and the Second Huffman Conflict nears an end. The Oceania Community Union Ground Defense Forces, or the OCU-GDF, have launched Operation Eagle Tears, a massive offensive to finally push the forces of the United States of the New Continent, or USN, off Huffman Island and into the Pacific Ocean. The soldiers of the USN Army fight a desperate rearguard action near Fort Monas to stall the OCU advance while they wait for reinforcements from the USN 24th Fleet, expected to arrive at 0800 hours tomorrow morning. While the forces of the USN Army's 214th Armored Division engage the enemy in Fort Monas itself, your unit, the USN Army's Dusk Talkers, have been scrambled from the 24th Fleet and sent by airdrop to harry the supply lines of OCU forces between Morgan Fortress to the north and Fort Monas to the south. Move fast, hit hard, and watch your surroundings. The line of battle is shifting rapidly, and you could easily find yourself behind enemy lines. May you always be at home in the dusk. So for those of you who are Front Mission fans out there, I'm sure you'll catch all those references. It is an iconic moment in the Front Mission series, and I'm interested to see how it plays out. So yeah, I mean, you've been with the 24th Fleet for a while now. You've been probably making your way from the mainland all the way out to Huffman Island. You're all from the Army, and you're stuck on this this ship with a bunch of sailors. That's well, I don't know. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about having to mess with a bunch of sailors? I think I'm especially interested in in how Hagen and Mary Lou are feeling about that, since you both got this Army background. Maybe you used to be military brats or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know how the Marines do it.
Well, there's Marines, there's sailors. I mean, like being in the mess with all of these Navy types. What's the thing that pisses you off the most?
I can't believe y'all settle for this slop. Is this really what y'all eat?
Great. How do you manage to choke it down? Like, what's your sauce of choice?
Oh yeah, right. We got to pull out that Louisiana hot sauce, right? Which I believe is just called Louisiana. I think is the name of the brand, right?
Right. And
So-
Hagen, do you partake
In the hot sauce?
Yeah.
Of course, from Mexico.
Yeah. How can
I
you
might
from
not-
Mexico?
Yeah, I don't like the Louisiana all that much, but it's better than nothing.
I told you to bring your own. This is a soldier's #1 best companion. I'll tell you what. Hot sauce. You can eat any kind of MRE if you got enough of this.
Is there always one in the cockpit, Mary Lou?
Absolutely.
All right. And what about Chaya and Venice? Is life aboard a carrier a new experience for you? Is this something you've done before? How are you feeling about the new accommodations?
I feel like it's pretty easy to determine pecking order, and being special forces, it's not too difficult to steal extra booze or rations from these sailors, and kind of just take some stuff back to our rooms, have a little private hangout, just kind of avoid the run of the mill stuff as much as possible.
Right. Okay. So yeah, you've got your own bunks somewhere on the ship. a few privileges here and there for being from the special forces. Your unit certainly has a reputation. And Venice, you got that sleight of hand. I'm kind of wondering if you've been using that against some of these sailors.
Oh, 100%. I have been very popular in every sense of the term at the poker tables and dice rings. I've been taking these sailors for everything that they're worth.
Great. And what have you been doing with like the script or the cash or the booze or whatever it is that you've got your hands on?
At the moment, I'm just hoarding it. There's not really anything in whatever the thing is where you go and buy things on the ship that I particularly want. But I'm sure it will come in handy at some point. So
Now, the war's been going really bad.
I'm
Like,
sorry. That was right.
it's the USN's been on the losing side of this conflict for a while, and you know tensions are pretty high on board the ship, right? Like you've been making your way out to Huffman Island, you've been sent in there to relieve USN forces on the island, but bad news just keeps coming in. Yeah, it is the commissary. That's right. Have you been sharing that booze that you got your hands on at all to help lighten spirits? Apologies for the pun.
We've been lightening their spirits. I feel like probably just between the special forces and maybe if we've made a few friends aboard, but not just with the general populace.
Okay. All right. Okay. I hear that. I hear that. All right. Great. And I guess another question I have is, do any of you have relatives on Huffman Island? There's people from kind of all over the world who've settled there, so.
Are you looking for a yes? Because I'll give you one if you need one.
Sure. Who is it?
Well, you mentioned that military brat thing, and I think that might be kind of a cool idea if Mary Lou comes from a line of military folks.
Yeah, and like I bet if that's the case, it means that you've got relatives in Fort Monas. The city's under siege. Fighting is intense. I'm sure the feelings are pretty high. So maybe it's a cousin or yeah, I guess that would make sense.
Cousin works for me, sure. Stationed at Fort Monas.
Right. Oh, okay. Intense. All right. Well, I think you get your briefing. It's the early hours of the morning. Like you're woken up around 4 a.m., 400 hours. You're given a rundown of the situation, and you're told that you're going to be doing a halo drop into the mountains between Fort Monas and Morgan Fortress, because it's imperative that the fortress hold and that they can use their artillery there to basically weaken the OCU offensive. So you're going to be on a search and destroy mission. I'll just go clearly over your objectives because that matters in this game, whether you achieve them or not. So your primary objective is to search and destroy for OCU raiders in the mountains around Morgan Fortress. There's obviously not time to get there by highway or train. You're still, ways out. It's the fleet isn't going to arrive until tomorrow morning. And flying in by helicopter or VTOL would be too dangerous. So they're going for the halo drop. But of course, that's something you're all used to by now. The secondary objective is to defend USN supply shipments in the area. So if you do get any calls for distress and you can relieve the supply convoys, that will be a fulfillment of your secondary objective. So what's something each of you do before a mission? I want to know about your prep. So Christopher, what's your prep for a mission? You're being scrambled. There's not a lot of time. What is it that you make sure you do?
First of all, check the loadout. Make sure that all the ammunition is there that I need. Make sure I know what I have. Make sure it's all in good shape. And then to whatever extent I can, I review the terrain, take a look at maps, and start just running through some scenarios in my head of, okay, we can position here and rain down fire over here, that sort of thing.
Okay, so this is like reviewing the topography, checking your supplies, all that kind of stuff. Okay, all right, I like it. Yeah, and oh, you've got that specialization in artillery. That's going to be interesting. I think if you have a specialization in artillery, you probably have some feelings about Morgan Fortress because they have some of the biggest guns in the world there. So,
I'm excited. That's why I'm putting up with the Navy brats.
Right. This is partially a bit about tourism. All right. Now, Chaya, what do you do before a mission? What's your prep?
I think Chaya has a kind of like a if shit goes bad bag that she meticulously like puts out on her bed and repacks every single time. It's got like extra guns and extra food and stuff, and because she's a survivor and she's gonna eject, and even if it's in the middle of nowhere, she's gonna find a way back, kind of thing.
Yeah, how much time have you spent out in the wilderness?
I think probably a lot when she was younger, and then maybe some for the military training.
Oh, of course, yeah. I mean, you went through special forces training, so yeah. Venice, what about you? What do they do?
I think it's rifling through their takes from poker games and finding trinkets that they knew were lucky to the sailors that they got them from, and sort of hanging those in their cockpit.
I love it. Great. Normally, if this was a normal game, I would definitely get you to make some rolls to have the ground crew let you do that. But I'll let it slide. But I love it. It's great. Yeah, and Mary Lou, what's your prep look like?
So, in this setting, did our branch evolve from a specific branch of the U.S. military?
It's the Army.
Army. Okay. So, I think that Mary Lou insists on leading everyone in the Army theme song. I don't know what it really is, you must sing the song over the comms before battle. And it's just a way. And I think what Mary's really doing, though, is kind of checking in on everyone and tuning into each of their channels individually and seeing how they sound through the song and maybe checking their nerves through that.
Great. Fantastic. Good CO. Singing is mandatory. Maybe we should rename the unit to the Dusk Singers. All right. Well, so you're all part of this fire team that's being sent out there. And I think once you've done your prep, you're probably all checking your watches. Is probably one of these standard issue. And so the time comes. It's time to deploy. So I think we see the hangar in the hull of the ship, of the carrier, and all of the Vonzers lined up, one after the other. There's ground crews, mechanics and stuff running final checks, running along catwalks, checking diagnostics, and there's these huge elevators inside the hold of the ship that start to lift your Vonzers up out of the hold and onto the flight deck. So daylight starts to stream in because it's about 8 a.m. now. And you can see up above you, like the doors are opening, the light is coming in. And you see the flurry of activity on the flight deck itself. Everybody's got their ear protection. They're going back and forth. There's planes getting lifted off by the catapults. In the distance, you can see that some of the cruisers among the fleet are firing off cruise missiles towards the island. And your the flight crew is basically starting to direct your Vonzers into a giant air carrier that will be used for the Halo drop. One thing about your Vonzers is they've all been outfitted with retro thrusters. So you have like these big assemblies on the shoulders of your Vonzers that you just have like retro boosters that you can use for the Halo drop. So because a parachute ain't going to cut it for a giant robot. So like when you're piloting the Vonzer, it's maybe a little bit more sluggish than you're used to, a little bit more top heavy than you're used to. But hey, you've had training for this, so it's fine. And you all pile into the carrier. The bay doors start to close in front of you. The sunlight begins to disappear. And Mary Lou, when's the last time you did a drop like this?
That's a good question. So, I don't know if there's a lot of other conflicts going on right now across the world.
I mean, this is the big one, but maybe, you had some operations in South America. Your special forces, so it could kind of be anywhere in the world, low intensity conflicts, that kind of thing.
I think it was probably a few months ago, but I think that it was a lower stakes mission, so this is higher stakes for sure.
Yeah, right, absolutely. Cool. And you've been singing that song to calm everybody down, right, and check in. Okay. So over the comms, you hear from the pilot that they're about to take off. You hear the turboprops on the carrier start to spin up, and you get the launch clearance from the ground crew, and this giant plane starts to move. You can feel the tilt, but you've got the braces on your Vonzers, like holding them in place until you're airborne. And you get up to altitude, and over the comms, you start to hear a kind of soft-spoken voice. This is your AWACS operator, Captain Miller. And I think, Mary Lou, you've probably had something to do with Captain Miller before, just because, he's been assigned to help out your unit. But he's a little bit of a newbie. He's been transferred into this job from something else. And how do you feel about that?
Yeah, so I think you mentioned this with the email you sent out at the beginning. AWACS is sensors. What is this?
Yeah, it's like those giant planes that have like huge sensors on them and fly over battlefields to like monitor the situation and coordinate units and stuff. So he's going to be relaying information to you.
Yeah, so You're asking like my relationship.
Like, how do you feel about like a newbie being assigned to coordinate your unit?
I think I've been in the military long enough that I've met a lot of newbies, and they come and go, and so this is just you know, you got to deal with the hand you're dealt. You know.
Yeah. And yeah, so he says, well, Dust talkers,
Speak up, Miller. Go backbone.
Sorry. It's been a long day. Okay. You're about an hour out from the area of operation. I will keep you updated as the situation evolves. If you have any concerns, feel free to contact me. My comms are open.
I got a concern. You
yes,
still wet the
Captain?
bed, Miller?
What's that, Captain?
Are you still
Say
wet in the bed?
again?
That's a joke, Miller. Lighten up. Keep touch.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Captain. I think I should thank you for that. Yeah. Godspeed. And closes the comms. So, what's your chatter on the way over to the island? What does that look like?
I think Chai is just like, Valdez, maybe you should go up and take over for him. I think you're a lot better at sensors than this guy.
I like being on the ground.
We're going to be like 3 clicks off by the time we get there. I just know it.
And then the pilot like comes over the comms like, I resent that. So yeah, so I think the time passes. It's, you know, that feeling of boredom, anxiety, anticipation. There's really nothing you can do. You're just stuck in your cockpit to fiddle with things, to check things over again and again, to chatter with each other. And you know, the environment doesn't change at all. There's nothing to see. You're just in this hold of this giant aircraft. But eventually, so reminder on primary objective, secondary objective. Primary objective is to seek and destroy for OCU units that are trying to target the supply chain going up to Morgan Fortress. Secondary objective is to defend the convoys if they come under attack. And I think this is probably a good point for us to go to the engagement roll. Yeah. So if you look at the engagement roll, it is on page 4 in the text. When the unit is about to start a mission or enter into combat, we use the engagement roll to determine their starting position. We make a dice roll according to the following questions, then the fiction follows from the result. So is the team well supplied? I would say yes. You know, you're special forces, you've got your retro thrusters. You've been well set up for this job, so that's 1 die. Yeah, you're at 2 dice actually. Start there. Does the team have reliable and relevant intelligence? And I'm going to say, actually, you don't. I think there's important things that you're not aware of in this situation. Is the enemy especially vulnerable to the team's approach? Not really. Like, you're going into wildlands. I mean, the Halo drop's Halo drop's helping you out, but it's not really putting you at a massive advantage. Is the team engaging a strongly held enemy position? No, that's not true either. Do the team's mecha have a significant speed advantage over the enemy? Probably not, I would say. Does the approach involve an exceedingly complex battle plan? No, not that either. And is the broader operational situation in the team's favor? Definitely not. So you're going to be rolling 2d6. So Mary Lou, why don't you roll 2d6 for us here and see how this engagement goes?
That's an 8. I hope that's good.
So it's a blades based roll, so it's each individual die. So you got a 6, which is a success, right?
Ooh, okay.
So when we look at engagement, a success, yes, means that your starting position will be a 6. So I'm going to write that down in roll 20 here. Position is a 6. Okay, that's pretty good. That's actually quite good. It gives you access to a bunch of positive battle maneuvers you can use. And we'll talk about how the drop goes. The bay doors open up again, and the wind is howling. You can kind of hear it through your cockpit. There's a difference in the air pressure, like your ears kind of probably feel it. One by one, you pile out and you make that jump. It's a long way down. But yeah, you wouldn't have made it this far if you weren't used to this. So I think you see Huffman Island below you, this kind of horseshoe-shaped island. Maybe this is something that Captain Cartier you've seen before, having visited relatives on the island or something like that. Maybe some of the rest of you have vacationed here before. It used to be kind of a resort destination, being in the sort of South Pacific. And it just gets larger and larger as you continue your drop, and you see the altimeter ticking away. As you continue falling, there's the rattling in your cockpit because you've got these retro thruster things set up on your Vonzers. Your aerodynamics are not very good because you're giant robots, right? And that turbulence keeps hitting you. You're back, up and down. And once you hit the designated altitude, you feel like you see as it starts to tick up to the altitude, those retro thrusters are going to fire at, and you probably brace, right? Because it's like, oh shit. And then you feel them hit, and yeah, the rockets are burning. You feel the heat. And the mechs are about the size of like a 2-story building. Not super huge. And there's a yeehaw. We get that yeehaw as you're just thrown back in the cockpit. You feel that jerk as the retro thrusters fire, and you slowly start to reduce your speed. And eventually you come to the ground. You're in the mountains. I think this is probably like a meadow, like it's like a meadow. There's a lot of like scrub. It's quite dry up here. If you think about like say like Eastern Washington State or like Montana, that's maybe the kind of environment we're seeing here, because this part of the island's fairly arid. And your mechs just sort of like alight on the ground. There's a bit of a crunch. You can feel the actuators in the legs of the mechs flex to take the impact, and your retro thruster assemblies, you can sort of flick them off, and they kind of disengage from your mech and fall to the ground with a big thud. So take in the surroundings. How are you all feeling?
Did I get to see those guns on the way down?
Oh boy. Hey, maybe you did. Yeah, maybe you saw the fortress up there and saw a little bit of a action happening up there. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I'm pretty hype.
Great.
I think that's Chaya's least favorite part. So she's like trying to recover.
And and what about Venice? How you doing? Are you hanging on to one of those good luck charms for
yes.
your life?
I am not Catholic, but I'm counting these beads.
I love it. You stole someone's rosary. in a gambling contest.
Yeah, trying to get the fucking slop from the cantina to settle in my stomach.
You're right.
Could be good. Just give me a minute, thanks.
Yeah, go with that oatmeal for breakfast. Try to keep it simple. Right. Okay, so I think you survey the area. Hagen, you probably are also already familiar to some extent with the topography here. There are, the trails, highways, rail lines running north-south from Fort Monas up to Morgan Fortress. And you start to patrol, right? This is search and destroy. So this is like the most boring mission. It's tense, but it's really boring, right? Because you just go from like one sector of the mountains, check out the topography, figure out a route, and you just make your walk through, right? Seeing if there's enemy units bound to follow the river valleys, follow any trails that might exist up here, like old logging roads, that kind of thing. It's kind of boring work, but you never know when you might make contact with the enemy. And I think time passes for a while. You don't actually find any contact initially. Excuse me. However, you do, after some time, maybe it's like mid-morning by this point, you do get contact from Captain Miller. Comes over the comms. And he says, Captain Cartier, there's been a development with the operational situation.
Go on now.
Well, as you're aware, the linchpin of our defensive operations in the area was Morgan Fortress. However, the fortress has fallen to an enemy unit of elite mercenaries. They took their Wanzers up under the cannons and they killed General Kirkland. And, well, everybody's in full retreat. I think there's been a change in our situation. You're going to have to... I'll have new orders for you in a minute. Just hang tight and get your units ready. You're probably going to have to relieve some of the fleeing forces.
Miller, you said Fort Monas?
Sorry, Morgan Fortress. Morgan Fortress has fallen. The cannons are gone. They've been destroyed. And the main enemy forces are advancing at full speed for Fort Monas now. I'll get right back to you. I need to get you new orders. And cuts the comms.
Yeah, you do that, Miller.
All right. So
Folks, we ain't got time for new orders. Cousin Cletus is waiting in Fort Monas for me.
I love it. So where are you heading? Where are you heading to start with here?
We gotta do what we can. Save those people. Ain't no cannons waiting for us. Sorry to tell you, Valdez. We can mourn them later.
I think I like the idea of revenge first.
Yeah. I think we're gonna take some initiative here.
Okay. All right. I like it. So are you gonna head for like the highway, maybe?
So what I would propose is like setting up an ambush, right? Is that something we could do, right?
I like it. Yeah, I like it. So I think you probably head towards the highway, because that's like this North Monas highway is where like most of your troops are going to be fleeing through, right? because it's just the fastest way to get down to Fort Monas unless you're on a train. Maybe some people are traveling there, but most people are going to be just trying to hoof it back down south. So you are going to pick a point where you can launch an ambush along the highway. And I think it's probably going to be... I like this highway bridge over a canyon. I think that might be a good choke point to use. Yeah, so probably Valdez, you've scoped this place out prior on your assessment of the terrain, and you all start heading over there. You do get new orders along, like, as you're making your way there. Miller comes on, and he says, Captain, I see you've started to move out of your own accord. I guess that's commendable. That's well, it's not my place to say, but I appreciate the initiative. So here are the orders from the higher ups. Here's what you got to do. First of all, you need to defend the USN columns. You need to defend our forces retreating to Fort Monas along the highway. I think you probably are already on your way there to do that. The second thing you've got to do, well, if you can, is try to halt the enemy forces at North Monas Pass. It's a mountain pass. The highway goes through there. If we can stop them somehow there, then that'll just buy us a little bit more time for the fleet to arrive and relieve the city.
And are we at Fort Monas?
You are not right now. So you might have to launch an ambush here and then fall back to the pass. Yeah. So that's probably your situation.
Oh, great minds think alike, Miller. We're already at the North Pass. Wink, wink.
Yeah, and like Miller's like, oh, like looking over at his sensor. Like we get the cut over to like he's in the AWACS plane, like among all these different consoles with operators talking to different units. He's like looking at his sensors and it's like showing the GPS of your unit. There's like the pass over here, your unit over here, and he's like, yeah. Okay.
Perfect. I knew I could trust in you, Miller. You're the number one AWACS operator in this operation, if you ask me.
Oh, thanks. All right. Well, I'm gonna go now. Good luck. And I'll have any information I can give you. There's a lot of friendly units headed your way, so be advised. And cuts the comms again. All right, so I think we're gonna actually get into the combat here. So let's talk about the terrain to start with. So if we go over to Roll20, you'll notice that the battle map is there. There's 4 ranges here in the battle map. Similar to like Burning Wheel, or if you've played 316, I think that has 3. But basically it's that kind of idea. There's melee range, short range, far range, and extreme range. So at each of these ranges, I'm going to add a terrain feature to represent what this place is like. So we're at this bridge over a canyon. So I think probably at short range, when you engage the enemy, we're probably talking about the bridge itself. Melee range, I would say, is going to put you probably like far cliffside. So you would be like on the other side of the bridge here. And then here in far range, I think we're talking about like some low hills. And then finally at extreme range, I think you could find yourself in some forest. So that just kind of gives you a layout, helps you picture what this place is like, and I'll read out some description of what the actual terrain is like here. So yeah, you see a lot of scrub vegetation along the cliff sides, like sagebrush, that kind of stuff. Grasses, tall grasses, short grasses, fairly dry. There are caves in the cliff sides on either side of the canyon. The canyon's quite deep. There's like a river that runs through there. Yeah, I mean, it's a hell of a drop. If you fall off that bridge, even in Avanza, are probably going to be having a bad day. And I think you hear the wind through the canyon and through the bridge is probably the sound that's most prominent. And the other thing you really notice is that bridge it's quite long and it isn't especially wide. Like it's got, it's like a 2-laner on both sides, but once those friendly forces start coming through there on like, tanks and heavy trucks and that kind of stuff, it's going to fill up pretty fast. So I think the way the actual engagement happens here is you set up the ambush, right? So if you're going to do an ambush, which is a maneuver you can select because your position is 6, I will get the card for you in Roll20, and you can look at it in the game rules as well. So here we go. Position 6+, choose a card. We're going to go with an ambush. So, the particulars of an ambush. This is going to test your weight versus the enemy's speed. So you can see your weight and speed listed on each of your character sheets there. And it's a total. Total versus total is the way this works. The range, you can put 2 of your units at short or melee range and 2 of your units at far range. So figure that out where you want to be placed.
I'll probably stick to far.
Same.
Okay. All right, so we'll put the 2 of you, far range. And short or melee, what do you want this ambush to look like? So you got the bridge over here at short range, and then the far cliff side at the far range. Maybe at the bridge length, you could try to put yourself in like in the caves on the cliff side or something like that if you're trying to do an ambush.
Yeah, I think Chai is like, Captain, put me in those caves on the far side, and I can pop out after they get on the bridge, being behind them.
Oh, nice. Nice. Okay.
Hope you ain't afraid of heights.
It's not my favorite, but I'll do it for you.
That's what I like to hear.
And Mary Lou, where are you gonna go? Melee or short?
Yeah, good question. I think I'll maybe stay in melee, maybe with the idea being, and tell me if this is incorrect, like if they get onto the bridge and I'm in melee position, am I now like pincering them?
Yeah, that's true. You would
Is
be.
that how that works?
Yep. Mhm.
Yeah, we got to get some flanking angles on these folks, so I'll stay in melee.
Okay. All right. So your weapon is not going to be in optimal range at melee, but you can still totally do that. So I will give you like some situational advantages for having this pincer attack plan. Okay, cool. So I think what happens is you hear the sounds of a helicopter start to come by, and you check your sensors. I think this is probably Valdez, why don't you make a check here? Why don't we do a action roll to see how you do with using your sensors to see what's going on with this helicopter?
Cool.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and go to action roll. So first, this is kind of similar to Blades, but a little bit different. So we'll just go through it step by step. The player describes what their pilot wants, their intent, and what they're doing to get it. So what do you want and what are you doing to get it?
Gotcha. I think just trying to get as complete a picture as we can of what the enemy unit looks like, what the forces look like. So probably situating back there and just doing a scan of the area, but focusing in on the bridge and kind of the path leading to the bridge.
Okay.
And then just running a scan, seeing what we get.
All right. And then can you tell me about any relevant characteristics you have that you apply to the task? So these can be your talents, backgrounds, specializations, equipment, weapons, or any other fictional positioning.
Gotcha. So I'm thinking, first of all, sensor specialist probably plays into it.
Yep, sure.
Artillery and terrain, I would say both do. Artillery, because I'm trying to focus in on a target so that I can calculate my shot. And then terrain, just kind of being aware of the surroundings.
Okay, so I'm going to say terrain probably yes.
Mm-hmm.
Artillery not so sure about that, because this is a sensors thing, right? This is not you're not quite firing yet. So
cool.
So I'm gonna say you get 2 bonus die there, so that puts you up to 3. And then I'm gonna say that you probably, well, when I look over at the helicopters themselves, I think you're going to lose 1 die because they're very fast and they like to fly low. So yes, you're going to be rolling, I believe, yes, 3d6 here.
Gotcha. You said 3 and then took away 1, so should that be 2 or?
It's 3d6 total. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. Oh, bonus. Gotcha. Yeah. Excellent. Looks like a 5.
Okay, so that is a success. So I think that I'll give you some good information on what's going on with these recon helicopters. They are, of course, recon, right? Like these aren't like heavy units. They're very light helicopters. They're just here to survey the path along the highway. You can probably surmise. And I will add those to the battle. Oops, I gotta switch over to token layer again. Here we go. Oh, there we go. Okay. So we're going to have 2 recon helicopters that are coming in. They're checking out your position. Obviously, you're trying to lay an ambush. So you don't want them to spot you. Mary Lou, what's the approach? What's the call here? Are you gonna engage while these helicopters are coming in? Like, you've got the drop on them. You know they're coming. You know they're just recon copters, right? Like, you got that advantage. But if you launch the ambush while they're coming in, maybe it's going to be harder to hit the rest of the units, right?
But if we don't take them out now, they might
They
reveal
might
our
spot
position.
you, right? So we might go to a fortune roll for that, right?
Yeah, I think we're going to do our best to try to hide within the terrain and not
Yeah.
play our hand too soon. Actually, I think what I would do here, even, I would get Pilsner on the comms and say, Pilsner, you're a gambler. What do you say? Hit or fold?
With these odds, Captain, I don't feel good about it.
Yeah. So are we going all in, or are we holding back?
I sort of cast a cursory look around all the trinkets I've garnered, and I'm like, well, no point in stealing all this luck for if I'm not going to use it. Let's head in.
Cool. So to clarify, I'm interpreting that means that we're gonna take down the helicopters and go loud now.
Yep.
And hope to salvage this.
Your call, Captain.
Yeah, that's right. All righty then. Guess we couldn't have expected them to have recon sensors right off the bat. Let's get these buzzards out of the sky.
Okay.
Deal with the fallout.
All right. I like it. I like it. Okay, so we're gonna do the first round of engagement will be done like outside of the full combat mechanic because I just want to see how our long range units manage to take these helicopters down or don't. So I think this is going to be a group action that we're going to use here. I want to know out of the two of you, Venice and Hagen, which one of you is going to take the lead?
My thought is actually to leave it to Venice in this case. Reason being that if I'm launching missiles, that will leave trails. And I'm thinking that if we take them out with clean sniper shots, we might be able to avoid detection.
Okay, I like it. Can you provide any assistance with, say, a sensor lock on?
Yep, sensor lock I can definitely do.
Okay, all right. So it sounds like Venice is taking the lead here. Very cool. All right, so let's take a look at the group actions. This is under action roll. So when two or more pilots work together to do something challenging outside of a major combat engagement, they add the following procedures to the action roll. So first, we choose the leader and the contributor. The leader describes what the group wants, their intent, and what they're doing to get it. So what are you trying to do? How are you doing it?
I would like to. So how many choppers are there? Like
Two.
Two.
Yeah.
Okay. I think it's one of those things where it's like, we're going to fire at the same time. On 3, 1, 2. I'll take the one on the left. You take the one on the right, kind of thing.
Well, you're the only one firing.
Oh, okay.
He's just giving you the spotting, right? Like he's helping you get the shot, right?
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. But you're trying to take down these choppers, right? And
yeah.
Like, what does it look like for you to have your rifle ready and like and try to make this quick shot to take down two helicopters?
I think my plan is, so it's either going to be a short barrage or like a couple of really strong shots, like that hopefully I can get them lined up so that they like crash into each other or like bullets pass through and hit both of them.
I like it. Yeah, let's see if you could. So your intent is to hit one so that it crashes into the other.
100%.
Okay. Some real hot shot shit. All right. Okay. Awesome. So we've described how you're leading the action. The contributing, like this is you like basically checking your sensors and like relaying information back and forth, right? Okay, and now Valdez, you are going to roll a d6.
Cool. 6.
All right. So now, Pilsner, you are going to ask this question to Valdez. It's question number 6, if you can see it under the group action.
I don't know how you set this up to cheat, but this is cheating. In this moment, do you trust in my luck? Why?
Yes, because you've got a lot of trinkets in there, and I did notice you got a rosary, and so that means something to me.
All right. So that means that you are going to take a +1 to your roll. So you're going to do it as an action roll. Pilsner's going to do an action roll at +1, right?
Okay.
And we'll go through the normal action roll procedure. So we've described intent and task. What characteristics do you have that you think will be relevant here, in addition to the help?
Oh, shootist.
Shootist, yep, sure. So that puts you at 3 dice. Yeah.
Can I make an argument for improv weapons by using one of the helicopters to crash together?
I think you absolutely can make an argument for improv weapons there. So, okay. So that's a puts you at 4 dice. And anything else?
Not unless the whiny rifle gets me anything, which I don't think it does.
I don't think so, because it's actually making it harder, right? Like, it doesn't reload that fast, so you got to get that one good shot in, right? Sure. So I'm gonna say probably it kind of cancels out because this is a long range weapon, right? But at the same time, it is a slow firing weapon, high reload rate. So I think you're definitely gonna lose a die. It's -1 because they're very fast. And it's also another -1 because they like to hug the terrain, and that's going to make things complicated. Okay. So I'm going to say you're rolling 2d6 here. You can spend edge to get an extra die. And you can also, if you like, use an overt boost, which is to push your systems to the limit to get an extra die. So yeah, both of those are an option. You can get up to an extra +2d. The edge is basically like free. It's like stress. You can spend it as you need to. The overboost is more costly. It's more dangerous.
How do I get edge back?
It's during downtime.
Okay. I would like for this to work. So I'm going to spend that edge.
Okay, so it's going to be 3d6, and you're going to mark off your edge.
All right.
Let's see how it goes.
5.
Okay, a 5. I like it. Good. Yeah, so I think what happens then is that it's a success. It's not a perfect success. So I think we're probably, it's a partial, there's consequences, trouble, harm, reduced effect. I think what happens is you do it. You make the shot, right? Like we get the coordination between the two of them. It's like cutting back and forth. Like we see the sensor screen. We see like your HUD on your Vonzer, like the reticle moving, like you're going back and forth in sync. You make the shot. This huge, loud, echoing sound goes off as like this giant cannon fires, and you can hear it through the canyon. Like those of you who are down in the caves, it's like, oh man. All these birds scatter everywhere, right? And it just tears through the helicopter, and it starts spinning and hits the other one. The two of them crash into the ground. There's an explosion. The trouble is that one of them actually lands on the highway, and the next thing you know, you start to see your friendly forces just come roaring down the highway. Like they're going full tilt. Like these are jeeps. These are like light armored vehicles, APCs, just trucks, like whatever people could get in and get the hell out. These are like the fastest vehicles in the line, right? Because they're the ones who made it here first. And one of them, like there's like a Jeep in front. It comes around the corner. It sees the helicopter like flaming, tries to slam the brakes, just slams right into the helicopter. And what ends up happening is that there is a pileup that happens at the far end of the bridge. So you definitely hear some like talk over comms. Like there's like the local comms chatter that's coming in, and people are like, "What the fuck is going on? Where did this helicopter come from? Shit, we got to get these vehicles off the road." Mary Lou, Cartier, what are you gonna say to these people? You made the call.
Damn, this thing's gone all catawampus.
Well, I have some good news, Captain, and that's that both of the helicopters are down. And that's my good news. And I come off.
You know what? That shot's going to go down in legend, Pilsner, and don't let anybody tell you different. Because we're all about to go down in infamy anyway. All right. Time for us to make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. How are we going to put this all together? Fisticuffs over there.
Yes, Cap.
Report.
I assume you're talking to me.
Let's clear this road.
You want me to get up there? You're a bit faster, but I'll be happy to do it, sir.
Your hands are open, aren't they?
That's right. So I think Chaya starts kind of jumping up the side of the cliff a little bit. You know, it's not far from here, but probably boost up and maybe even like grab onto the bridge and pull myself up onto it and start kind of like jogging towards the mech jogging towards the helicopter.
And
then I'm
there's
just
this flaming wreck in front of you. There's like people kind of like staggering around where the jeeps have crashed in, and like there's traffic backed up, people leaning on their horns.
It's a real nightmare.
And so what are you going to do to try to clear the road?
Well, first I'm going to give them like the mech finger behind me to all the people that are honking at me. But then I want to like kind of gently, because these things could do more damage to the bridge, but scoop up the helicopter and the jeep and just throw them.
To be clear, this is like before the bridge. So like it's like the highway right leading up to the bridge. So you're not in danger of like falling off or anything like that.
Gotcha. So yeah, I just want to take the helicopter and the jeep and kind of throw them into the canyon if I can make it from here.
Okay. So it's like you're like putting down your shotgun, putting down your rod, and like picking these up and trying to throw them
out of the way. Yeah.
All right.
Would you just toss a friendly into the canyon?
If they're survivors, I'll let them get out first.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay. I'm not going to be that GM. It's like, yeah, there's a mother and child. You should feel terrible, you monster. No, so I think so this is gonna be another action roll. Big time pressure happening here, right? So what's your intent and task?
My intent is to clear the way, and the task is, I guess, to use the leverage of the mech to pick up these giant pieces of machinery.
Yeah, I like it. Okay. So what characteristics do you have that you think apply to the task?
Maybe hit and run, because it's under time pressure.
Okay.
I don't think anything else fits, honestly.
I'm gonna also say maybe the fact that you've got a heavy Vonzer is
Okay.
gonna work to your favor here because you got some force behind that thing. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna say you probably got 3d6 starting. Gonna definitely take one away because of the time pressure happening. And I'm also gonna take one away because this is a very unwieldy thing to load. Not gonna finger you. I'm gonna finger someone else. So I think you're rolling 1d6 here. Do you want to spend an edge to make this happen?
Is there
Do
any
you want to
way?
overboost? Yeah. You want to help?
Any way that Brawler ties into this at all? Is that about the pilot's boxing skills, or does it have to do with
ooh. You know what? I think that makes a lot of sense. I'll give you an extra D for that. Yeah, because you're used to ducking and weaving. You probably know how to handle a Vonzer. So yeah, so that would put you at 2 dice. Do you want to spend edge or do you want to overboost to deal with this?
I think it makes fictional sense to do the overboost just to get the extra power that I need to move this stuff out of the way.
All right,
So,
I love it. Okay,
do
so what you're going to do here is you're going to roll a d8.
Okay, do that first.
Okay, a 5. It's your lucky day. All right, just barely, but you made it. So how do you what does it look like when you push your Vonzer to the limit to get this thing off the road?
I think there's like a second set of like servos and things that start spinning up and they get like red hot, especially around the joints, the knees and the elbows, and there's probably an extra one on the back. Yeah. So you like kneel down to do that deep, like squat pickup type thing. And those extra servos kick in and start spinning, and there's a moment of like tense, kind of, is it going to happen or not kind of thing. And then just kind of a explosive like stand up toss. Yes, today is leg day.
Yeah, okay, cool. So yeah, this is a deep squat. All right, so let's see that action roll. You're going to be at 3d6. All right, there's another success. So I think partial success. You are gonna get the stuff off the road. However, you are and people are starting to move. Like there's traffic that's starting to get across the bridge. The difficulty is that the enemy shows up as they're starting to get moving. Okay, and you're kind of caught out of position. Because you're up
weapons
there, around, probably scramble to pick up your weapons. And now I think this is where the ambush is really going to fire, right? So we're going to see how this goes. It's rough, but hey, we'll see. So here's the enemy units that are going to show up. I think here it's going to be, just give me a moment. Got to do some Roll20 stuff. Move this over token layer. And actually, I should do this too. Okay, so these are out of the picture. Pick them out. This is what the opposition is looking like here. We've got a couple of enemy LAVs, light armored vehicles, that are just roaring down here. you can like it's like the traffic is starting to move along the highway, but then we can hear like the sounds of like heavy diesel engines in the background, right? And it like just tearing around the corner. They stop and like try to scramble for a defensive position, right? And there's a bunch of infantry that pile out the back and start to try to get some anti-tank missiles ready. So I think this is the opposition here. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So let's go ahead and do an actual combat like an engagement phase. So it's down here. So the first thing is that the pilot in charge of the stage selects the maneuver. So you've already done that. We select your ranges. You've already done that. The unit total of the first stat, weight or speed, listed in the maneuver is compared to the enemy unit's total of the second stat. So you were testing weight, right? That's 11. And the enemy speed, I think this is weight versus speed, right?
And with that weight, did we include the Rexon's two-handed feature? When rolling with weight in combat, roll at +1d.
Was that included? Yes, we got it. Okay, we got it. Okay. So it's 11. Yeah, cool. Awesome. And yeah, thanks for catching that too. So as far as the ambush goes, yes, it is weight versus speed. So enemy speed, I'm going to calculate that right now. So we're talking about okay, their speed is 8. Okay, so it's weight versus speed, and it's 11 versus 8. Okay. So if the pilot's unit value is greater than each pilot, or is greater, each pilot takes +1d. So you're all going to make individual rolls, and you got to keep track of your individual dice pools. But everybody's getting +1 to your dice pool because you've got the advantage here in this comparison. The GM checks if any environmental or situational factors improve or worsen the pilot's unit position. I will say I think it's a wash, because like it is a good thing you have your long range units on the far end of the bridge. That's going to work to your advantage. On the other hand, the situation on the near end of the bridge is kind of foobar, right? So it's kind of a wash. If the pilot units outnumber the enemies, each pilot takes +1d. So that's not true. You're equal. If a pilot's weapon is in optimal range, they add +1d to their dice pool. So if your particular weapon is in optimal range, you add +1d to just your dice pool. So figure that out. You got the +1 for everybody, and then another +1 if you're in optimal range. If you have any special systems for your weapons that will give you extra dice in this situation, note that down too. And then each pilot declares if they have a tag that can aid in the maneuver. So just one tag, one characteristic of your pilot or your machine that will aid in the maneuver. So why don't we start out taking a look at Captain Cartier. Do you have any tags you think would help here?
Yeah. I'm going to say yes and then look to see.
Of course.
Right. So maybe. We are behind enemy lines, and I'm used to airdropping and military psychology. Yeah, I think if I'm going to apply military psychology here, it's going to have to be explained by me, like psyching people up in some way or stealing them for this coming engagement. Is that feasible or no?
Yeah, if you either think the psychology plays into the ambush situation, or if you think the psychology has allowed you to calm people down in your unit, then maybe it could be applicable. Yeah, you could also. I think that might be. Ooh. I think that might be your best bet. So what do you think? You think it's applicable or not?
Well, I guess that would depend on how people are feeling about how Cartier has been communicating with you through this engagement. Do you have confidence and trust in her after we're going, against orders and things kind of went south? How are y'all feeling?
I think I'm fine. Given that we got here in time for the helicopters. If we hadn't, then things might have been worse. So
Yeah, I'm pleased with Cartier's level of flexibility and also positive reinforcement. Those are all good, and feeling okay about that.
All right. So yeah. So let's say you get that +1D.
With our powers combined. Okay.
Yeah. All right. And what about Valdez? What do you got?
Time for some artillery. So
yeah,
sounds pretty obvious for me.
Nailed it. +1D. All right. And Vice.
I think I'm getting the bonus from Brawler here.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, you get that bonus from your talent. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
And other tags, I don't think so. None of my specializations make sense right here.
I'm just double checking. Yep, that should make sense. Okay. And then Pilsner.
Real excited about that. What was it? The shootist?
Yeah, okay.
Grab that.
All right.
Is rolling with weight class in combat just a setup thing, or?
That's just, yeah, you don't actually so okay, we'll talk about what your final dice pool is like. So
okay.
you just have to take into account the bonuses we've got so far. So there was the one that had to do with the weight versus speed, right? You were an advantage there.
Mm-hmm.
And then optimal range bonuses. And then there's weapon bonuses you can have, possibly, right? And then a tag. I think everybody came out of that with a tag that could help them. So the terrain. Okay. I think that for the units that are in melee range, the terrain at this point is probably working to your disadvantage. For those of you who are at far range, it's probably working to your advantage. So those of you who are at melee range are going to take a -1. Those of you who are at far range are going to take a +1. And then you can choose to spend edge or overboost in the situation to get extra dice.
So with that military psychology, is that my own role that I'm considering, or is that for
your
everyone?
own dice pool? It's your dice pool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Do we start with any dice baseline, or is it all the plus?
It starts at 1 die. Die, and then you add on top of that. Yeah. And edge or overboost. Anybody wanting to spend that?
I'm going to pass on that for now.
Okay.
I will
Okay.
definitely spend an edge.
All right. So just mark that down. Okay. All right. So everybody's got their dice pools, right? Everybody's going to make your roll now. So it's all those bonuses we talked about plus 1d.
One more question.
Yeah.
Can I use my shield as a weapon in melee range and have it be suited for that or no?
Absolutely, you can. I think you're still gonna be. It's kind of just gonna be in the fiction because it's not giving you like a major bonus, right? Like
Okay.
it's
Well,
absolutely usable, but it's not as beneficial as say having like a big rod that you could bash people with.
sure. So like my gun is a far range, so it would be ill suited.
Yes, that's right.
If I use my shield, that's like a neutral.
Yeah, yeah, it would be. It's kind of an improvised weapon, right? So it's not necessarily in or out of range. I guess what I would say is you get no bonus, no negative, really, in that situation. Yeah.
Just so that I have all my ducks in a row.
Yep.
I just want to go over. So I have one from range because I'm at far and that feels really good. I
Yep.
have one from a group thing that we all got.
Yep.
I have one from shootist.
Yep.
3 total.
No, you also get one from the terrain.
Sweet. Okay, so that's 46. Thanks very much.
Yep.
My highest is a 4.
Okay. So here we go, everybody. So we got a 4, we got a 6, we got a 6, and we got a 4. So 2 4s and 2 6s. So 2 partials, 2 full successes. So what that means is partial or full success, position is increased by 1. So everybody got a success. So that means that the position is increased by 4, right? Which does mean that you are going to win this engagement. We do need to think about what the specifics of ambush do, right? So ambush, the resulting position is +2, so you're actually going to end up at a position of 12. Very good. All right. And on a partial success, you suffer a moderate consequence. And so the way this can work is I can either add the consequence after your narration or before your narration. I think in the case of, so let's see, who got the partials? So it was Michael and Chris. Okay. So that means it was Hagen and Mary Lou. Okay. Okay. I think in the case of Hagen, what's probably happened is you notice that there's something that's gone off with your missile calibration. So that's something you maybe need to get fixed. So you can note that down as like a consequence in your notes. As far as Mary Lou Cartier goes, I'm gonna wait on your narration and then figure out a consequence from there. So we're next gonna go to the ambush maneuver. So for every person who got a success, which is everybody, you're going to read off and modify one of these narrative prompts to describe how the ambush goes down. Okay. So we'll start maybe with the long range units, right? So I don't know. The last time Pilsner got the spotlight, so why don't we go with Valdez this time?
Cool. All right. So I'm thinking I'm going to go with this last bullet here. As the anti-tank troops are unloading, they're swarmed by fire from our weapons, and its allies are starting to scatter a little bit. Basically, we're able to, with the missiles coming in, I figure you guys can handle the armor, so I'm actually focusing on just kind of creating hell for the ground troops. And so I'm just raining missiles down.
Yeah, okay, cool. So yeah, we see these explosions going off. The troops are the infantry are scattering. They're trying to go to ground, and the light armored vehicles are trying to like figure out where to move. They're in a bit of confusion. Okay, so next, let's go to Pilsner. Which prompt do you want to choose?
I feel like I stand concealed by the silence is ominous is a little late.
It's already passed, right?
Yeah. Let's see. It's reviewing the folks that we have, which is some armored stuff and then some shooty rocket fellows.
Infantry, yeah.
That's a technical term, right?
So why don't we do this? I'm going to rewind. I'm going to use the safety tool. I'm going to rewind here, and I'm going to say, Valdez. This is what you do, but it's going to be chronologically later in the engagement. So we're gonna instead see what happens before that right now. So you can go ahead and choose any of these prompts.
Chill.
Is it best to do them in order?
Yeah.
Is that how it's designed?
It's best to do them in some kind of like chronological order that makes sense. So it may be there's a kind of a moment of standoff as the two groups are looking at each other, and you could activate some of these prompts and then go for the explosions and everything blowing up.
Okay. Then excuse me. I think the enemy steps into view of my sensors. I tell you to I think this is Venice seeing the enemy APCs. Is that what they're called?
Yeah, sure.
I don't know.
LAV, it's fine.
The truck boys sees the bad truck boys get into a line, and I think signals Valdez to fire, seeing that like a sort of cascade effect will happen and they will get in each other's ways. And I'm also firing to that effect.
Nice. Okay, cool. So then, yeah, why don't we get to the close-up characters? So let's see. Cartier, what are you doing?
So I think we're almost like in bullet time here, right?
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
We're waiting for the trigger to pull.
Yeah.
I stand concealed by a low hill, right? I'm sort of crouched in this mech, and the silence is ominous.
Okay. And then we will continue on to Vice.
Yeah, and I'll do the last one. I think one of the truck boys is like trying to get out of the way, and suddenly I'm just right on top of it, kind of thing, swinging my heavy rod down.
Nice. Okay, so it's like the heavy rod comes. It's probably like, so when we put this all together, what it looks like is hiding behind the hill, followed by the order to concentrate fire in a specific location, followed by Vice coming out with the rod, landing it, and then the missiles raining down, everybody scattering, and the enemy forces just break. And I think it's like the allied units that were in that convoy that were fleeing, like they get out of their trucks and like they have like rifles and stuff, and they pull them and they start like moving to get all of the enemy infantry to surrender. So you've come out of this engagement with a position of 12, which is very, very strong. So what that means is if the enemy position is reduced to 0, you get a total victory, a glorious breakthrough. Or if I want to read it in my darkest dungeon voice, it's a glorious breakthrough. So yes,
a pride comes before a fall.
Exactly. I wrote all of these like taglines with darkest dungeon voice in mind. So that's where that inspiration is coming from. Yeah, so you get a total victory, right? The enemy is wiped out without cost. The enemy line collapses. All objectives are completed. So I think what this means, and how are we doing for time? I think we've got like roughly 30 minutes left. Is that correct? Yep. Okay. So I'm going to give us time for debrief. I think we're probably gonna do some fast forwarding here to try to figure out how the situation ends up playing out. I think your actions at the bridge, the bridge of like, east or like South Morgan River or something, the engagement at South Morgan River, it definitely goes down as a heroic action. Despite the chaos at the beginning, you managed to like halt the enemy armored cavalry, and it meant that a lot of these like forward units were able to make it to safety and like set up for a better defense at this North Monas Pass, right? And so that allowed to hold off the enemy long enough for Fort Monas to be relieved a little bit. So you completed your primary objective, right? You completed your primary objective. Secondary objective, we'll say it's also complete. Why not? Or let's do a fortune roll. This is what this is for. So I'm gonna get you to roll a 2d6 there, Cartier, to see how this goes. And that is
effort.
Okay. So I think it's like you had a better position down in the pass, but ultimately you were forced to break off and flee towards Fort Monas. There's just too many enemy forces coming down against you, and I think the enemy air force was starting to get freed up, and they just started to rain down bombs and missiles on your position, and you just had to retreat. So
let's get this gravy train rolling on some biscuit wheels.
Yeah. Yeah, and we definitely get like that chase scene of like, all of you in like trucks with your Vonzers in the back, like in the bed of the truck, like driving, like trying to escape the enemy artillery and stuff. And so what that means is we go to the mission performance evaluation. After a mission ends, win or lose, the unit is given a performance evaluation by their employers. These evaluations determine pilot advancement by rewarding experience. The evaluation procedure is as follows. So did the team complete their primary objective? Yes, right? Did the team complete at least one secondary objective? Unfortunately, no. Did the team complete all their objectives? No. Did the team avoid taking heavy damage? I would say yes. Yeah, you probably did. Did the team overcome overwhelming odds? I would say yes, you did, right? This is a really bad operational situation. You came out with a major victory. So what that means is you get an A rank for your actions. So an A rank and above counts as exceptional performance. Exceptional performance grants 2 experience to each pilot. Any other result grants 1. So each of you take 2 experience. And if any pilot made an exceptional contribution to the mission, they get 1 experience for meritorious conduct. So you think it was a team effort, or do you have a nominee there?
I have a nominee for Pilsner with that now legendary textbook technique, for sure.
All right. So yeah, take an extra XP.
Hell yeah.
And the way this plays out in the end is quite ironic, because you made that spirited defense. You fought really hard to defend Fort Monas. The enemy forces, and the Allied forces in Fort Monas, fought to a standstill. There was a lot of fighting in the suburbs, but in the end, what ends up happening, as per the game, is by 4 p.m. you get word over the comms that there's actually been a ceasefire announced. The war is halted. So you defended the city, you did, but it's all really unclear why the war was being fought in the first place. There's a lot of questions that are going around, and why it ended just as the OCU was about to take Fort Monas from the USN. It doesn't quite make sense. It's all quite confusing, but if you want to find out why that happened, maybe go play Front Mission.
This has been an extensive ad for Front Mission. I see you.
This session brought to you by Front Mission, now available on PS2.
Yeah. It's Nintendo DS. Go check it out on Nintendo DS. Yeah, but definitely, I want to see some epilogues for these pilots. You've defended the city. The war is coming to an end. What does this end up looking like for the Dust Talkers? Let's first go with I think maybe Pilsner. Let's start with Pilsner. Yeah. What's things look like for Pilsner?
I don't know if that clears my service, as it were.
I mean, you got meritorious conduct, right?
I sure did. Yeah, so maybe that does mean something. I definitely end up returning some of the trinkets that I won. Not all of them end up back to, because some of them just don't end up having someone to go back to, but it's sort of the way that I come down after the war is sort of doing this service kind of thing. More for me than the people, but the people seem to appreciate it. So yeah, that's what I keep busy with.
I like it. Cool. Yeah, and let's then go with your partner in crime, Weiss. What does the epilogue look like for you?
I think immediately after, Chaya did not. It wasn't intense enough. The combat was not intense enough for her, so she kind of goes and gets in fights with some of the sailors. To kind of try to get rid of the leftover tension from the combat.
I love that. I wish we had a downtime phase so we could see how that all plays out.
Yeah. And then she probably ends up back with Venice, maybe just quietly chatting, drinking in their bunks or whatever.
Yeah, do you get one of those good luck charms?
Maybe if there's an offer, yeah, that would, from someone who didn't make it back. Yeah, something like that.
Cool. And you can all enjoy all of that booze and stuff that you managed to get from the sailors earlier in your deployment.
This is what we were saving them for.
Right.
This celebration right here. Throw a big
Yeah.
party for it, yeah.
All right. And how about Valdez? What is it? What does the epilogue look like for you?
This is just post-op, I assume.
Yeah, post-op or like further into the future, either is okay.
Further into the future, probably I would stick around with the military. I joined on my own will. I plan to make a career of it. So probably staying in special forces for as long as they'll have me. And essentially because we're special forces, we're always ready for the war to break back out again, should the ceasefire end.
Yeah.
And so there's probably actually even some, kind of Cold War, not so Cold War action, I assume, that happens. So probably involved in that.
You can see it in Front Mission 2 if you happen to go check that out.
There you go. Find Valdez in the follow-up.
Yes, awesome. Yeah, I like it. Probably get deployed to Bangladesh, or Bangladesh as it is today, to do some black ops there. Yeah, pretty cool. And finally, Mary Lou Cartier, the captain. What does the epilogue look like for you?
Well, I reckon I earned myself a promotion. I got enough money to burn a wet mule. But I'm just starting to get bored, and I learned when I was behind enemy lines that complacency is the killer. So, I think that with the military action kind of cooling down and not a lot of engagements going on, Mary Lou gets a little impatient, and she jumps into a mercenary corps. So you can see Mary Lou in Armored Core 2 available.
Nice. Yeah, totally. You become a member of one of these famous mercenary units that are all throughout the Front Mission series. Cool. Really nice. Yeah, I like it. Okay. So I think I want to go for a bio break at this point. And then we are going to do some stars and wishes and any extra debrief that people need. Yeah. So I'll see you in 5. All right. So everybody's back. And I think we'll do stars and wishes to start with here. Is everybody cool with having this broadcast, or should we go offline? I think the standard at GauntletCon so far has been to go offline, but I'm fine with either option.
I'm good either way.
Okay, cool. Yeah, well, I'll keep this live, I guess, for my own recording purposes, so that I can review it, and we'll maybe go offline for final debrief. Okay, so stars, just something you really enjoyed, something you liked about other players, about the game, about the scenario, or about myself in this session. And we'll start with Christopher.
So stars, I really like the system actually. I think that it handles tactical combat in a cool way. It doesn't get too granular, too open-ended, even I should say, maybe with as far as like describing what you're doing and just kind of the weird nitty-gritty of you think you pulled off an action and you have to like keep repeating until like the GM decides it's done. There's actually like a good mechanical resolution to that. So I liked that. Beyond that, good GMing, really appreciated that, and good play from the players.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate all of those kind words. Joshua, do you have any stars?
I really like that the system includes a commanding officer. I think it adds a really good dynamic to the gameplay and the flow and everything. And then also, I think kudos to you for giving us a good feel for front mission without really getting too far into like the the nomenclature and all these things that would have probably just but it felt good, and I felt like we were in mechs stomping around, so it's good.
Great. Yeah, I'm glad that all worked out. I think it can be it's a delicate balance you have to find whenever you're using a pre-created setting, right? It's always have to read your table. So I'm glad it worked out, and it was constructive rather than just oppressive and getting in the way of the fiction. All right, Michael.
I really, really like the changes you've made to combat in this iteration. I thought that the battle map was perfect amount of like crunch, I guess, like to ground things and to make our choices feel important. I felt like the dice pools didn't get too huge, but also like there was enough there that like it was like enough thought. It was really good. So I think things are moving in a good direction. So pleased with that. I'm looking forward to running it.
Oh, that means a lot to me. I'm glad that you've come out of this session feeling like it's something you're excited to run. So that's really cool.
Because when I first saw the changes, without even really like looking them over, I was like, "Oh boy, this is new and weird and different. I don't know how I'm going to feel about this." I like my theater of the mind or whatever.
Yeah.
But this was a really good balance for me.
Yeah, well, if I can just go on a quick digression, that was really the result of playtesting, because I originally started out with a much simpler system, but what I found was like it was pretty much just like World of Dungeons Breaker inspired. And what I found was that works really well for fantasy games because people just like have so much experience with the genre that it's easy to theater of mind just like bullshit your way through everything. And what people really needed was like a lot of things to grab onto for a mecha game, because the familiarity just isn't there, and the theater of the mind is so much more difficult to do for most people, I think. So that's where I ended up moving to a crunchier system, because I just needed to give some support to the fiction.
I still felt my story gamer side still felt supported by some of those cool prompts though. Like I really liked the blanks for each maneuver, like fill in the blank here, and I liked the ask a question for the group action element too. So I was like, Okay, I'm
Yeah,
still
I
with you,
grew up
Kyle. Still good.
Yeah, I think those were, of course, those prompts were, of course, inspired by Firebrands. So my game is a caricature of 2018 game design, so I can appreciate that. It's Blades in the Dark combined with Wodu combined with Firebrands. Okay, and Sasha, what are your stars?
Yeah, all those things. Also, big shout out to Mary Lou Cartier's extremely good accent and completely obtuse Southernisms. I appreciated that very much. There was other things I wanted to say. I do appreciate the limit to the crunch. I like adding up all the dice and then um I'm almost sad that we did as well as we did because I'm like curious about the other positions and things like that. But yeah, this was very cool.
Yeah, thanks. I think the sort of randomness of, or like not randomness, but bounded randomness of engagement in this game is kind of maybe a bit of a legacy or leftover from like kind of the OSR inspirations it had somewhere back in the line. So I guess sometimes you do really well, sometimes you get in a really tough position. And I mean, part of the game design is that as you accumulate consequences, yeah, no, that's exactly the idea, right? Is that there's this certain amount of like unexpected stuff in war that happens, and the idea is like similar to Night Witches. Like when you're in downtime, you really have to work at getting the supplies you need, at keeping your unit going, at avoiding trauma or treating trauma. And so the grit level will sort of crank up as you keep playing. Hopefully, at least that's the design aspiration. But yeah, I also like to see this kind of like wildly successful thing happen too. All right, so let's do wishes. Or wait, I have to do stars. So I will give definite stars to Michael for Mary Lou. I loved all those Southernisms; they're so good and very like inspired improv to just like pull them out, pull them out of your hat.
All from Google. Like, yeah, none of that belonged to me.
Stars to Google. I think I also have a lot of stars for all of those like free play scenes at the beginning that we got. Definite stars to Sasha for a lot of inspired free play at the beginning with like the luck stuff. I loved all that. And pretty much everybody, I like to see your interactions with the life and the environment, and I love to do all that stuff. And just also finally stars for picking up the system and running with it and making it sing. So thank you very much. Now wishes, things you would like to see different for yourself going forward. This could be in role playing in general, or it could be in this game if you ever play it again, or things you would like to see different about the game or my GMing. Any of those things are open. Just it's framed more in a sort of like aspirational sense than a critical sense, right? So it's not thorns. We're not going to like criticize everything here. We're just going to say I would like to see this and that. Yeah. So we'll start again with Christopher.
Cool. I didn't have too much in particular. I think just for myself, I want to keep getting better at sort of the improv thing. I felt like I didn't have a strong sense of my character in the sort of the opening free play, and I think part of that is just that I didn't have. I personally tend to play a lot of like very quiet, stoic characters, and so just improving kind of like that personality, having something a little more entertaining, as it were. So that's just for me.
Yeah. Pick a funny voice, it helps. Good advice, yeah. Michael. I like it. Cool. Joshua?
I think most of my wishes have to do with just probably more like the campaign play you were talking about, where
Mhm.
you get into the mental trauma of the soldiers and the requisitions and stuff. Um, I think it would have been fun at the beginning if we had had some kind of mandatory downtime scenes that were interconnected with all the pilots,
Yeah.
um, or had
Uh,
some kind of like background tie-in stuff with everybody, just to kind of establish that um, before going in. But
yes.
it was nice to at least have a connection with Sasha's character and do all that stuff was fun.
Yeah, like stars to both of you for like figuring out that connection. I think that helped, and I think you're absolutely right. Flashbacks, yeah, sort of downtime scenes to begin with. Possibly starting the game with a certain amount of trauma already on the board because it's a one shot, right? That could be another option for trying to improve the one shot experience. Yeah, I appreciate all that feedback. And Michael, wishes?
So I came to the table with Mary Lou being a little comical and over the top in a setting that's it's more gritty,
Mhm.
and I was kind of hoping to do that as a way to like be a contrast for when things went bad, but then things just went pretty well.
Well, there was a massive car pile up.
Yeah, you know, I was kind of interested in seeing like this person who is like outwardly like effervescent or whatever, and then how they like comfort their squad after things go bad, and think it didn't really turn out that way. So like that's something I'm interested in seeing, and like Josh was touching on with that with the trauma and sort of like the aftershocks and the things that come afterwards after the combat, you know, and physical harm. I'm interested in seeing what that looks like too, because uh, that's the cool thing with mecha for me is also the shift between big fighty armor and then now soft humans, and what does that look like? So that's what I would like to see in the future.
Yeah, I feel all of that. It would have been nice to see some of the grit in this game, and I'm definitely going to work on that. It's something that I
I
feel the need
think
for.
I think what you set out to do with this session and what you goalposted ahead of time. I think we definitely succeeded in.
Yeah,
So I was glad to see all that. I'm also just looking forward to that stuff too.
yeah,
So that's how I would
great,
phrase that.
great. And Sasha, wishes.
I would like to fight the big robot, please. I would like to find a big robot and then fight them also in a big robot. That is my wish for this game.
As in punchy rock'em sock'em robot fun?
That's exactly. Well, I mean, we fought a bunch of what were they called, trucky boys,
Yeah.
and some squishy runners. And I would like to find another big robot and then wrestle that big robot.
Okay.
That's my
yeah.
next goal with this game.
I like it. I like it. Yeah. To peek behind the curtain there, the first combat engagement took a lot longer than I expected. So the second engagement was going to involve a lot of big robots. But I think we got really involved in the like actual situation there and like figuring out the positioning and the helicopters and everything. And like I enjoyed all of that. But yeah, there were robots in the offing. They're just a bit too slow to get there at first.
That's always how it goes. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So yeah, my wishes, I really have to echo a lot of what has been said here. I feel very much the same way. My wishes, I think, are to continue to work to make sure that the thematic content of the game and the mechanics are in line with each other. I'm still feeling some disconnect here based on the amount of successes that you had, the fact that you didn't really feel the grit in this session very much. I know this was a very sort of like narrow look at what this game is going to be, but I still want to do what I can to help bring that out. So yeah, that's going to be a future wish for me. Yeah, to see that happen. All right. All right. So we're going to go offline. I think this is the end of our broadcast. If any of you have watched this and enjoyed it, please consider joining the Gauntlet. And it's easily searchable on Google, at least, Gauntlet RPG. And you can join in fun games like this. And thanks for watching.